in a minefield, back out,
Yeah.
and so forth. And so I think we need to all begin to listen, because I don't believe this is the end of the financial problems. I believe that we are still, this is going to sound very negative, I think we're still in the early stages of a financial crisis that could go on for the next 5 to 10 years or more.
That's interesting, because and it leads on to one of the things, and of course one of the next emails that we've got here. But of course, you saying that, one then has to say, well, what's going to happen at the end of that 5 or 10 years? Are we ever going to get out of it? Is this something that has to do with the whole biblical perspective? I mean, is the economy and the problems that we're facing? And Chrissy writes in, she says, hi, Doug and Don, bless you. Do you think a one world monetary system will eventually come into being? Very simple question, probably not such a simple answer.
Maybe more simple than we think. I think one of your leading politicians has actually talked about a one world currency and why that would be a wise thing. And you hear people all over Europe and America now talking about a one world currency as the solution to this financial crisis. As the financial crisis actually worsens over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, I think you're going to hear more talk of world currency, of world government, and so forth. We have leading politicians, people on Wall Street, in our Treasury, in our Fed, and so forth, that are strong advocates of a world government. Okay, and they're actually quite vocal about it. David Rockefeller, one of the stronger advocates of world government in America, he spoke in front of the United Nations in 1993, and he said the world is moving towards world government. He said all we need is the right major crisis, and the peoples of the world will accept the new world order. The right major crisis.
And he actually said that.
He actually said that
on record,
in the United Nations. I've quoted that many times in my newsletter. And, what is the right world crisis? Well, maybe it started in September of 2007 with the meltdown of the credit default derivative bubble, this hundreds of trillions of dollars derivative bubble that started in the United States, moved worldwide, and maybe this thing accelerates over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. I believe in my heart of hearts that it will. And then the cries will be more for world government, more for world currency, and so forth. We must concentrate power. The old national formula for national governments and currencies, that doesn't work anymore. Well, that's not true, but I think that's what they're going to say. And so as I analyze the world financial monetary meltdown, breakdown, if you will, Doug, and also a lot of political things that are happening around the world, to me, it sounds like we are moving not only towards world government, but very possibly, and I say possibly because I'm not dogmatic about this, towards the rising kingdom of the Antichrist. I wonder if this world government, if that may not be what it is all about.
It's interesting. I mean, obviously, I don't have a fraction of the knowledge you have about the monetary system, but one of the things as I've looked biblically that I've always thought one of the things that would really bring about that potential one world government, and maybe the only thing that could really bring it, will be a financial crisis, because any other thing is contained. But once you get it seems to be you've got all these dominoes stacked up, and only one big thing's got to go, and the domino effect goes literally right around the world.
Well, what are some common denominators in the world's financial sickness now? The credit default derivatives that were created on Wall Street with the blessing, I might say, of our government, our Fed, our politicians. They saw what was going on. They didn't care because everybody was making their billions of dollars in profits. But those credit default derivatives were spread all over the world into every nook and cranny of the financial world. It was like an AIDS virus that suddenly just went everywhere. Okay, that's one of the common denominators we have. The other is you've got $13 trillion in dollar-denominated assets that are in every nook and cranny around the world. And so we've seen the meltdown in the credit default derivatives bubble, and we're seeing, I believe, the early stages of a meltdown in the U.S. dollar. By the way, it's dropped 70% in value since 1980. It's dropped about 33% in value since 2001. I would call that a meltdown in the U.S. dollar. But we believe that meltdown is going to accelerate. Now, when that meltdown accelerates, it's not just a problem, a huge headache for America. It's a headache for the whole world because everybody owns those dollars.
Yes.
Is that what could trigger this global crisis? Is that plus the credit default derivatives, is that what could do it? And then we have these illustrious leaders in Brussels, in Washington, and New York at the UN standing up and saying the only answer to this global crisis, remember that's what Rockefeller said, the right global crisis, and people will accept the New World Order, will be a world government. So I think we're moving in that direction very, very rapidly, and I think Christians need to understand the times. They need to be able to see the political side of what's going on, the financial, monetary, economic side of what's going on, and the spiritual side of what's going on, and tie them together. Yes. That is what we try to do in our newsletters and the things we talk about.
Are you suggesting, Mark asks, are you suggesting there is going to be a financial collapse, and where is it likely to happen first, USA or the UK?
That's a good question. Not being an expert on the UK, I do rely on a few of my friends in the UK who would argue that the situation, at least on a percentage or a per capita basis, financially is worse in the UK. I understand a lot more about the American situation, and it looks to me like it is terminally ill, that there's huge problems. And by the way, this whole thing about recovery, we're in a great recovery. That recovery is so totally bogus. There never was a recovery. They just kept talking about the recovery.
Yes.
And it's like you're laying on the floor and you're feeling bad and you're turning green, Doug, and the flies are collecting. And I tell you, Doug, you've never looked better. Get up, Doug. Let's do it. Let's go down. Let's make it happen, Doug.
Yeah.
And that's what they're hoping, that this will bring back the U.S. economy, and we'll all start going out and buying and borrowing again and so forth. I think the United States has been the biggest offender in the world monetary system. Not the only offenders, but the biggest. And I believe that the global financial crisis will start in the U.S. and with the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. Already, major powers are beginning to move out of the dollar. China, Russia, the Middle East, Brazil, as fast as they can.
Yes. And, of course, once that happens, then, yes, it will spread to UK, it will spread to other parts of the world fairly quickly. Patricia says, this might sound like a silly question, but does your guest know why all these different firms are offering to buy everybody's old gold? Every time you turn the TV on, there's someone advertising to buy gold.
Yes, because they're ripping them off and assume the public is so stupid that they don't know that gold is going up and is going to go up a lot higher. Don't sell your old gold. You should be buying more gold. Yeah. Gold has just gone from 253 in the last in 2001. It bottomed in 1999 at 253. It double bottomed in 2001, 2 years later, at 255. It's since been up to 1,229. I'm talking dollars.
Yes.
Wish it was pounds, but I'm talking
dollars a do.
I'm talking dollars, and now it's back down around 1,100 and so forth. Gold is going to go a lot higher. People we know who we have great respect for, who do understand the monetary system, including a friend of mine, Ron Paul, who is a very well-known and respected congressman in the United States, believe that you will see gold at several $1,000s an ounce.
Really?
Because of the financial crisis, and because this financial crisis is going to accelerate. Now, the people who are advertising on television, we'll buy your gold cheap, we'll give you a great deal. It won't be a great deal, but this is a big mistake to sell your gold. You want to be hanging on to your gold. I believe it will go up much, much further. And in fact, we're counseling our people, look, gold is one of the few stable things in an unstable world. Gold and silver. Silver's done well as well. Why are the central banks in Europe accumulating so many gold? Not Europe, in Asia, in China, in India, accumulating so much gold. The Central Bank of India just bought 200 tons of IMF gold. Let me tell you what's happening with gold. This is important to understand. Gold is moving from weak hands to strong hands. Gold is moving from the west to the east.
Right.
Now, this is an important point, and I hope our listeners will get this. There are epochs in history where certain regions and certain countries are dominant. And England, blessed old England. England ruled the world in the 1800s, and they did a great job. And I'm not one of those against the British colonial empire. I've been all over Africa. I've seen the results, and I've seen the good stuff that came. But you know what? Then the baton passed on.
Yeah.
And in the 1900s, the baton passed on to America. And America became the dominant world power. And we were the dominant world power pretty much up towards the latter part of the century. Now